Hello, everyone. This is Klaudia welcoming you to the Language Bites podcast. It's my top priority to bring you ever closer to your goal of becoming a confident and fluent speaker of English. Have you heard this saying, perfectionism is the enemy of progress? The message suggests that pursuing excellence is always undesirable. The truth is, it all depends on how you approach it. Our main topic today, perfectionism. In today's talk, you'll discover the darker side of perfectionism that, indeed, can be far from being your trusted friend in learning. If you're like me, you have probably been blissfully ignorant of the fact that there might be more than one type of perfectionist. It turns out perfectionism comes in different forms. To be precise, 5 types of perfectionists have been identified. In this episode, I'm going to discuss some of them and walk you through how the general ideas around perfectionist tendencies can be transferred to the language learning context. Another thing we're going to focus on is the beliefs we tend to stick to that slow down our progress. Finally, we're going to see what you can do to experience the joy of learning without getting every detail perfect. Who says you have to? You don't have to. So now, without keeping you any longer, I'm about to treat you to a wholesome plate of knowledge bites. Off we go, guys. Let's begin with a question. How does perfectionism, even the slightest hint of it, show in how you approach your own learning? Think again. How does it show in your learning satisfaction, in your learning choices and learning activities? Based on what I have heard my students say, here are 3 examples of typical beliefs around getting things right immediately. These beliefs can be summarized as follows. 1. I must understand every single word or idea in a text, or else it doesn't make sense to go on reading or listening. 2. I must be able to translate every single word or chunk in a text to fully understand the meaning. Number 3. I must be able to know how to use, insert any grammatical structure here, without mistakes to feel ready to speak. How true do these statements sound to you? Have you ever had this feeling that you must understand 100% of what you're working on? That you must be able to translate every word or chunk to move on to the next one? That you must be able to know how to use a specific grammatical structure before you even try to express yourself? I risk saying that at some point, we all have been there, one way or another, aiming for perfection at every turn. What if instead you created new beliefs in place of the old ones? What about choosing beliefs that will help you joyfully move forward? Those ones that will give you a spring in your step. You know what I mean? I invite you to do this short mental exercise now. Take a moment's reflection and, considering the questions I'm going to ask you in a moment, create statements that will reflect your new and empowering beliefs. 1. What are your standards? 2. Do you beat yourself up for not meeting the self-imposed standards? 3. Are they set in stone? Are they fixed? 4. Or do you allow yourself room for modifying them according to the type of task, your energy levels, or your objectives? So here's the thing. How you define good enough can strongly influence your actions, or whether you take any action at all. Probably we all know that perfectionism is procrastinator's twin sister. Probably we know it rather intuitively. So listen on to find out which type of perfectionist is most likely to see this play out in their own life. You're listening to the Language Bites podcast. I'm Klaudia Woyas. Before we continue, here's my invitation for you to join me in a class to explore the topic of perfectionism even further and create knowledge together around it to come away equipped with more ideas to face it. So now, how to combat perfectionism like a pro? One way to do it is to formulate powerful beliefs that promote action and gradual progress. If you're wondering what else you can do, here are a few ideas worth trying out. Set yourself limits. Who hasn't gone on 4 hours, days, or even weeks working on one and the same issue without a vision of the final destination? Perfectionism can lead us to exhaustion as well. Sometimes it's hard to resist the urge to keep focusing on one aspect and get perfect at it. In this kind of mindset, you could continue forever. What could help instead is a clear goal of what you want to achieve, by when, and how you will know you're there. For example, if you want to read an article, limit the number of chunks to focus on to 5 or 6, and then work with just them. What else could you do? Choose the quality over quantity of learning. How does that sound? Picture this scenario. You have been studying for a good 3 hours, trying to understand how to use a specific grammar point. Somewhere deep down, you know it's time to take a break and let your mind rest. Anyway, you keep trying to get everything right and perfect in that moment. Get it perfect now. It doesn't happen. You end up being frustrated. In the worst case scenario, you never take up the challenge again. Having said that, where does it all come from? These perfectionist tendencies. Now we're going to take a look at different types of perfectionists. The classification of perfectionists comes from the psychotherapist Morgan Schaffler, who studied employees at Google. You can find a link to the full article in this episode description. I have selected 4 out of the 5 types that I find to be most relevant in the learning context. I'm going to describe each briefly to help you find any points of connection with your own experience. 1. Intense perfectionist. Well, you fall into this category if you are trying to improve your skills no matter what, which can often leave you feeling exhausted, frustrated, and unmotivated. You might find yourself saying, just 1 more hour and I'll get it perfectly right. 2. Classic perfectionist. This type tends to overreact when things don't go as planned. While learning, they don't feel comfortable with spontaneous discoveries. They might be thinking, these are the rules to follow. If I can't get them, I must spend more time on them. But here's the trap. In this way, the person will not look elsewhere for alternative answers, ideas, and solutions. 3. Procrastinator perfectionist. Here's a personal bit. I identify with this one the most. It describes someone who prefers to wait for the perfect situation to start learning, whatever it is they're interested in. Say you want to revise your class notes, but instead you keep collecting or rearranging them in a careful way to get them ready. What you're missing here is the fact that you get stuck in a cycle of collecting, rearranging, and planning for this revision. The preparation itself takes you so much time that you end up forgetting what you wanted to do in the first place. That is, revise. A thought, occasionally at least, a thought might cross your mind like this. I need to have my notes in one place, neatly organized and numbered. Only then will I get down to revising. That's when you have a hard time accepting that now is as good a moment as any to start revising. 4. Messy perfectionist. Before I explain what lies behind this type of perfectionism, let me ask you, are you now in the middle of many different activities, all of which are not completed? While it might not be a definitive sign of messy perfectionism, it is one characteristic of it. Other signs include getting excited about starting new things, but losing focus over time and believing you can do everything. This attitude can show through your excitement to start learning several new things all at once. As your study to-do list grows, you start feeling overwhelmed, not knowing what to do first. As a result, you find yourself unsure of where to start and ultimately, well, not doing anything at all. Let's have some reflection now. Now that you have all learned about the different types of perfectionists, consider these questions and let yourself go with the flow of your thoughts. See where they take you. You may want to record yourself at this point if you prefer. 1. As a learner of English, do you consider yourself a perfectionist? 2. How much of a perfectionist are you? In what areas? Do you identify with one type or multiple types? 3. Think of specific situations when your perfectionism was evident. What were you trying to learn? Did you succeed? 4. What are you inspired to do now that you're aware of your perfectionist tendencies? Okay, guys, here's my message to you. Don't let perfectionism hold you back from taking the next step. Don't let it have you slide down the spiral of procrastination. Time is too precious to wait for flawless results when actually the ultimate goal is to communicate fluently. Of course, we all want to be both fluent and flawless. It's mostly possible when we have achieved mastery, but not necessarily too soon when there's still so much to learn along the way. Probably you will agree with me that even as native speakers of our mother tongues, we don't always speak correctly, do we? I hope my final message to be heartwarming. Let your authentic voice in English shine through, even if it's imperfect. That's all for now. I appreciate you guys for tuning in and to get in touch with me if you'd like to learn English or just to share your thoughts on the topic in the comments section. Until next time, bye bye.